Oh, it's an exciting show, Hank.
Yeah, I know. You got a big guest on the show today.
I do. So I'm in such a good mood. It's going to be such a great show. Welcome, everybody, to the James Arnold Taylor podcast. We'll get Mr. Announcer Guy to come in, do the whole intro because we got to get to it because there's so much to say with my very, very incredibly special, the most special, important guest I've ever had on the show. Go ahead, do your little thing there, Hank.
Ba 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 ba.
My wife, Allison Taylor. Yes. So now let me say this before we go any further, though. Hank, no, stop it.
Well, I was going to do
I know what you were going to do, but just hang on. I said that originally Allison would be the last two episodes of the season. And you may be going, oh, wait a second. It's December, what is it? I don't know today. Today is going to be, it's December 9th and there's still a few weeks left. That's right. So here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to end the year and the season of the James Arnold Taylor podcast. Season 4. 4 is my favorite number. So it's been a special season. We've got the next two episodes, this episode, and then the one after it. It's a two-parter with my amazing, amazing special. Thank you, Hank. Special guest, my wife, Allison Taylor. But then for Christmas week and for New Year's week, I'm going to do special Christmas and New Year's episodes of the James Arnold Taylor podcast. Harkening back to when I did Christmas episodes, I was talking to someone recently, and they were saying how much they enjoyed my Christmas episode. I was talking to Dan Zier. That's what it was, on Coffee with Kenobi, I believe. And I was on his show. I don't know if you've heard that yet. I think I've been on there already now. And Coffee with Kenobi, because I'm Kenobi, and we didn't drink coffee. I had water. As a matter of fact, you're going to hear, this is exciting. You're going to hear the origin story from the actual person who, that's good water. My wife will tell the story of her grandmother, and that's just kind of fun. So anyways, a lot to cover in today's episode. So we're going to do, these next two episodes are going to be with my lovely wife, Allison Taylor. Beautiful, wonderful episodes, a lot of fun. And we recorded them actually yesterday, and now I'm just doing the intro for it here today. And Hank, you're excited. You're getting everything ready.
Yeah, I want to do the thing. I got to get the microphone ready for your lovely wife there. Okay,
I'm going to let you do it. Go ahead.
All right. Hello. Testing Allison's microphone. This is Allison's microphone. Hello.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you, Hank. I appreciate you doing that.
You want me to test yours?
No, I don't.
All right. Don't know if it's going to work.
It's work. I can hear it.
Well, Billy's in there doing the...
Yeah, Billy's in. He's fine.
Okay,
so let's bring in Mr. Announcer Guy. Hey, Mr. Announcer Guy!
Yes, James?
You're ready to go.
Yeah, man, I want to hear your interview with Allison Taylor.
That's my lovely wife.
Yeah, dude, she is lovely.
Thank you. Okay, then you go ahead and do the intro for the show so we can get on with it.
You got it, dude. Cue that music, Jerry the Music Man.
You got it, Mr. Announcer Guy!
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, it's the James Arnold Taylor podcast. Talking to myself, the JATcast, man. On today's show, JAT welcomes a very special guest, his very special wife, Allison Taylor. Now here he is, the same guy that's doing all the voices you're hearing, including this one, James Arnold Taylor!
Hey, there it is. Thanks, Mr. Announcer Guy. You gonna go now?
Yeah, man, I'm going to go now.
There he goes. And here we are. Okay, let's get right to it. A special interview with my special guest, my wife, Allison Taylor. I could go on, but we go on and on actually for quite a while here in this first part. This is part one of a two-part interview. You're going to get to know a little bit more about JAT, that's me, through the voice and eyes and ears of my amazing wife, Allison Taylor. This is exciting. Here we go. Let's do it. Enjoy. Okay, so we had Hank come in and test all the microphones for you. He came in and did your microphone. So you don't have to do any of the hello, but you wanted to, didn't you?
I really did.
You can go ahead, do it. Go ahead.
Hello.
Well, you have to, yeah.
Hello.
Okay, that's
Do
good.
I sound like him?
Not at all.
Okay, good.
Which, as my wife, I'm grateful you don't sound like Hank.
Agreed.
Hey, I heard that.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Welcome to the James Arnold Taylor podcast. It's very strange for me to be sitting here. I've had many guests on the show before. Our daughter, in fact, has been on a couple of times. I've had friends on the show. I've had celebrities on the show. But generally, I talk to myself. And you are the one person that has known me longer than anybody and has seen me talk to myself more than anybody. And now you are the guest. I think a lot of people are excited. So welcome, Allison Taylor, to the James Arnold Taylor podcast.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I've never been on a podcast before. It's so exciting.
You have on your professional voice.
Oh, yes. Very much so.
You have not been on a podcast. That's
No.
interesting. Okay. But you've probably been in the background or something at some point when I've been on a podcast or done something. Actually, you have. You've been in rooms when I've been on podcasts and things.
Yes. I understand what a podcast is.
Okay. So now we get to see the sassiness of Allison Taylor. So we have been married going on 34 years this year.
Next year. Yes.
Yeah. But we've been together 36 years.
Yes.
This is
indeed.
why I get confused because, a lot of people's like, oh, just remember the anniversary date, which is fine. But you and I kind of celebrate like when we first dated and everything too.
Yes.
So that gets confusing for me. You kind of give me a bad time on that. But the truth is, it's reasonable to get confused. You're shaking your head no.
Well, if I don't give you a bad time, who's going to?
No. Okay. You are what they call an introvert. I am an extrovert. Your daughter is an extrovert.
Yes.
We've done those tests. What are they called?
The personality.
Personality type things,
test.
the Enneagrams. We've done the Myers-Briggs tests
Yes.
through the years. Yours always shows you as an introvert and someone that likes kind of things properly in their place.
Yes.
But different than me. I'm very what you might call, OCD, ADHD, and yet you are none of those things.
No, not really.
Only from living with me for 34 years.
You've rubbed off on me.
I have. I'm sorry in that regard. But so that was the other thing is we go like, well, what could we talk about? We spend our whole lives together
Yes.
all the time. We spend most of our days together. Is very little time we spend apart. However, when we are apart, like for example, today is Sunday. What is it? It's the 1st. Oh, it's the 1st of December. Yesterday was a very special day. Yesterday was your birthday.
Yes.
And we celebrated your birthday. We did many fun things, you and me and our wonderful daughter, Lydia Rose Taylor.
It was a nice day. It was great. We ate good food. We went out. We shopped. We walked. We did all the things we like to do.
We did. And it's fun to see you very happy doing that. Well, it's fun to see you happy anyways, but it's things like that that make you very happy, correct?
Yes. Well, I love spending time with you too. That is just fun in and of itself.
You love doing silly, fun things.
That's true.
You like playing games.
I love playing games.
You like eating good food.
Yes, food makes me extremely happy.
You like going for walks.
Yes, I do like exercise, and walking is the best exercise I've found.
Okay. So it was a very good day for you.
Yes.
And then today you're recording a podcast as an introvert, and it's going to be a 2-part podcast. That's probably not your favorite day then.
No, it's fun.
This
This is fun.
So why is this fun for you?
It's fun because I just get to talk to you.
Yeah, but
And-
you get to talk to me whether we're on microphones or not.
That's true. But this is just different. And I like trying different things, doing different things.
I'm curious about this because I've mentioned for years about having you on this show. And you've always been like, yeah, okay, whatever. Because that's basically your response to anything.
I'm pretty easygoing
Pretty
that
easygoing.
way.
You are a very easygoing person. And yet you seemed like you really actually wanted to do this.
Yeah, because it's something I haven't done before.
Is
So
that
now I
why?
can say I've been on a podcast.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's really the reason, but it's something for you. It's something with you.
Mhm.
And that's what I enjoy about life is spending it with you.
Oh, well, that's very nice. We've been together since high school.
Yeah,
We met in high school.
we did.
We met before you were a freshman officially. Is that
officially.
correct?
Yes. In the summer before I was a freshman.
Although, well, that's according to my rules, not according to yours and Lydia's rules.
Well, yes.
That's a whole other story. We could back up and tell that for a second. You both would say when Lydia, because you homeschooled our daughter, Lydia.
Correct.
And you all would say once you finished a year, then once it's summer, you are now considered that next grade.
Yeah, you've graduated to the next grade and you can officially say, I'm a ninth grader now, that eighth grade is behind me.
However, I would say you're not a ninth grader until the first day of school when you are a ninth grader.
It could go either way.
It could go either way. People listening can vote on what they think.
I think my way's better.
You and Lydia both kind of team up on me on that, and you think that that's better. So you were a freshman, but you had not officially started school yet when we met.
But we officially started band, so isn't that kind of officially starting school?
So band rehearsals began before school began. A week or 2 weeks?
I think 2 weeks.
I think 2 weeks as well. I can't remember. It's a long time ago. It was almost 4 decades ago now. That's crazy.
Gosh.
Well, it's three plus decades. That's crazy. You were, well, and that was before, that was a couple of years before we started dating.
That's correct.
So we knew each other for 2 years before, we knew of each other.
Yeah.
You want to tell the story or do you want me to tell the story? Or does it matter? Do we not tell this story?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's a fun story.
I think I've probably mentioned this story on the podcast before.
Probably.
But so we were in marching band. I was a drill instructor, like the marching instructor. I was a squad leader. That's what I was, a squad leader. I was a very good marcher.
You were.
I was very good. I wanted to be the drum major, but they made me the band manager instead because Isaac Jenkins, our band teacher, thought I had what it takes to be a band manager.
That's an
I had a
important
lot
job.
of flash and but also a lot of managerial things, which is surprising because I'm a creative. Yeah. But I do I'm the CEO of our business.
Yeah.
I'm the president and CEO. You're the what are you, the vice president?
I guess I'm the vice president. The technical term would be the secretary because in certain states you need to have a secretary
to record and to do all that. And you handle, I have the fancy title and I make a lot of big decisions, but you do all of the work.
I'm the introvert behind the scenes person.
Yeah. And so anyways, I digress. We then go back to school. So I was the band manager. And our band director, Isaac Jenkins, was actually, he took a sabbatical.
He did.
For a year?
Yes, 1 year. So my first year, I was so excited to go into band with Mr. Jenkins.
Who was kind of famous in our hometown of Santa Barbara as this amazing band director and musician and entertainer and teacher, mentor. And he really was all those things to so many people, myself included. He was like a father to me. And you then were all excited. And then he took a sabbatical.
Yeah.
And you ended up having, the teacher was a woman that actually helped you, that taught you how to play the flute.
She taught me how to play the flute. I took lessons from her with a group of other kids playing other instruments.
How old were you then?
I was in 6th grade.
You were in 6th grade when you started
12?
playing.
Yeah.
I was in 7th grade when I started playing the saxophone. So you played the flute and the piccolo.
Yes.
Not everybody that plays the flute plays the piccolo.
No.
Why did you choose to play the piccolo as well?
It's small and light. No. I really liked it. I liked the flute a lot. And I thought, well, that's a cute little instrument. Let's try that.
And it makes cute little sounds. It's also piercing if you don't know what you're doing.
Really high. But I liked it. And I liked both of them. And I picked both of them up. The piccolo's a little harder.
Embouchure. Is that?
Embouchure.
Embouchure?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you say it?
I think so.
Oh. But you kind of lost it a little, haven't you?
Oh, yes. I haven't practiced in a long time.
You used to pick up your flute and play every once in a while.
Yeah.
And you haven't in many years now.
I haven't. Well, the braces I had.
Oh, you
for
had
a while.
braces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could talk about that even. Yeah. You had braces as a kid.
I did.
But the last several years here, you had braces again to correct something that had happened, which they call an open bite.
Right. Yeah, this had been developing over time, I guess, and it was causing a problem with my bite. and eating and stuff like that. And
We're all over the place here.
Yeah.
Now, this is just to back up, so to get us back on track of telling the story,
Yeah.
because it'll take us the whole hour to tell the story. You probably had just had your braces removed when we first met. You were how old when we met?
Oh, yeah.
13?
I was, 14.
14 years old.
Yeah.
Wow. We were kids.
We were kids.
And so cut back to that. So you had just had your braces probably removed within a year or so of that time, right?
No, actually, I think I might have still had them for a small amount of time in
yeah,
ninth
maybe
grade.
you did
I
actually.
think my ninth
I
grade
think you did have braces.
picture had braces
Yeah, you
on
had
it.
braces. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You were very cute.
Oh, thanks.
And so that's right. You did. You still had braces. And then you just had braces now and you had them removed. Thank you, Jesus.
Yes.
But okay. So when we first met, you had braces and you were adorable and you were 14. And I was an upperclassman. I was 2 grades ahead of you.
Correct.
You were part of my squad. I was squad leader. That's why I was a squad leader.
Yep.
And do you remember what I was wearing when you first saw me?
Yes, you were wearing a red suit, red slacks, red jacket, red Converse, probably.
Converse high tops, yes.
Yeah.
Chuck Taylor.
With a
Converse
t-shirt underneath.
A black t-shirt. And the sleeves were probably rolled up on the jacket.
Oh,
Very, very Huey Lewis.
Because it was a warm day.
It was a warm day in Santa Barbara, California.
Probably like
And
72.
We were out on the field marching all day. And you were directly behind me.
Yep.
Although sometimes if we reversed, you'd be directly in front of me.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to you, but I probably was joking a lot with you.
Yeah. You were very nice, and you were one of the only upperclassmen who was nice to us little freshmen coming in. You would talk to us and you would treat everybody nice. And I thought, what a nice person.
Oh, that's very nice. I just took a sip of water. You have your water.
I do have my water.
We'll talk about water and your grandma too at some point.
Okay.
So I was nice to you, which is great.
Yes.
And you were probably kind of nervous because it's like, oh, you're now in high school.
I know.
So yeah, I mean, you can expand.
Well, it was a big deal. And being accepted into band was a big deal because you had to
Right.
be good at your instrument and you had to be good at marching.
And
this
you were in, sorry to interrupt, because we both started marching band in junior high, which
Yeah.
some people would call middle school, depending on where you are in the country. Where we were in California, we called it junior high.
Yeah. And I was maybe a little less nervous only because the woman who taught me how to play flute, who said I was good enough to be in junior high band, who said I was good enough to be in high school band, was the one who was going to be our band director that year.
Yeah. So you see me, and then what else did you think about me?
I thought you were cute.
See, I wanted to get you to say that. Okay. And then you kind of decided, oh, I like that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I even wrote to one of my friends that I went to camp with that summer and said, there's this cute guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's an upperclassman. And I thought, oh, too old.
Yeah. So fast forward a couple years, and you are now, were you a junior?
I was
You were a
16.
Junior. And I had left school early, and I'm now a DJ at the big rock and roll radio station in town.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a big fish in a small pond, right, of Santa Barbara there.
Yep.
And I'm the overnight. Well, I know. Well, yeah. At that time, I don't know if I had the 8 to midnight shift or I was the overnight. I think probably overnight DJ still when we first. So we have 2 friends, and they are dating,
Right.
and so they decide, because they're our best friends and we're all together, that it would be wonderful if you and I get together.
Yeah. That'd make things fun. We could double date, all that stuff.
So what they don't realize is you had already liked me,
Yeah.
and I thought you were pretty wonderful.
Aw, thanks.
So, and cute and lovely and all of that. So I asked you out on a date because I had come from a concert. Now I was a big shot DJ. I had come from a concert, and it was a Sting concert. Sting was huge. This was the 80s. This was what,
87, 80.
1987,
88.
1988. 1988. My gosh, feels like a lifetime ago. You know, Matt Lanter was like 4 years old. And Ashley and Matt, they were little kids. But so I asked you out on a date. But what had happened is I had come from a Sting concert where I was the DJ that was taking everybody backstage to meet Sting. So I got my picture with Sting. I got to meet him. He signed a poster for me. We hung out. He talked about James Taylor references. He made James Taylor jokes with me. It was a fantastic concert.
So exciting.
And I come from the concert and I've got my backstage badge on my Top Gun leather flight jacket that had patches all over it. And I had the Sting patch on it now. And I come into my friend John's house where everybody was hanging out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I met Sting. And everybody's like, well, yeah, you're the best. You're so cool, James. Wow, you're so cool. And I say to you, I met Sting. And you say,
so what? Not impressed.
You were not impressed. You could care less.
I didn't. I thought, is this guy trying to impress me with meeting Sting?
Yeah. And so that's when I decided, oh, she's fantastic. Well, and to be fair, a lot of people, and it's still kind of the same in my life, I've been very fortunate, since I was about 16 years old to be in show business and to be working in it in somewhere or another and to be in places like that as a DJ. I was a DJ from the age of 17 on, where people kind of hold you up in this regard as, a celebrity of some sort. And that's wonderful in some ways. It's terrible in other ways. It's also tiring in many ways, one of which is that everybody wants something from you.
Right.
Everybody wanted concert tickets from me. Everybody wanted backstage passes. Everybody wanted records or to go in and see the radio station or to have their name said on the radio or for me to play a song for them or me to give them stuff or whatever. So everybody always wanted something from me. And I am very much an empath and pretty much a giver. And I enjoy doing things like that.
Yeah.
So for me, it was only natural to be like, hey, if you ever want to go to a concert or whatever, and you were like, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
I'm interested in you, right?
Yeah. I didn't want any material thing from you. I just wanted to get to know you.
That's very nice. And now you're like, oh gosh, now I know him so well. But so we go 3 days later, we go on our first date because that was April 1st. The concert was on April Fool's Day, which was a funny thing that the Sting concert was on April Fool's Day. And April 1st is also your dad's birthday.
Yeah, it is.
It's also Matt Lanter's birthday, which is funny. So he was turning 4. Something like that. Yeah. I think he was turning 4 when we met. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, you have to give him a bad time about that at the next Comic-Con. So it was Matt Lanter and your dad's birthday. And I decided to ask you out on a date. But we went on our first date on April 4th.
Yeah.
I know that. So a lot happened in like 3 days. We decided we would go on a date.
I think it was spring break, so a lot could happen. I didn't have school to distract me.
But I remember I had the K-Tide video van. I was the driver of the big video van, the promotional video van for the radio station. And I gave you a ride home because your friend Holly was off with her boyfriend John. These were our best friends or something, right?
It wasn't where we was very close to my house, but it was night. So
and you needed a ride home. Mm-hmm. So I opted to give you a ride home. And I think, did we kind of formalize that we were going to go on a date then?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I remember you gave me a little hug goodnight.
Yeah.
That was very sweet. It was very nice, very innocent, very sweet, just a little hug. And that was very nice. And I thought, I like this young lady. So then we went on a date and we double dated with Holly and John, Han Solo and Princess Leia. No, we went on a date. Now, because I worked at the radio station, I had what they call trade, which was almost like monopoly money. It was like free money that you would get to different restaurants and things. And so I had trade for this restaurant that I wanted to take you to. And they ended up having a power failure.
So sad.
So we all kind of on the fly decided we'll go to, I think, El Torito instead.
Yeah, it was across the street.
We got fajitas, and it was just a few, 100 yards away from the movie theater that we were going to have the evening we were going to go see a movie together. And so we went to see, we had fajitas, and we saw Biloxi Blues starring Matthew Broderick, who would be Ferris Bueller. Yes. And Christopher Walken and Matthew Broderick were in that movie. They weren't with us.
No, that would be weird.
This show could still be called Talking to Myself because I'm doing all the talking.
That's true.
I'm sorry. Then something happens in the movie there. We're waiting for the movie to start. Do you remember?
I do.
And we're both sitting there next to each
Yeah.
other very nervously.
Right. Well, I wasn't sure if you liked me. I thought you did, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
and I
you're
thought,
crazy.
Whatever.
Okay. Then the lights dim for the trailers and all of that. And what did I do?
You went and reached for my hand.
That's right. And I held your hand.
Yes.
And we held hands the entire movie and all the trailers. It was probably 2 hours.
You can't let go because then, that person doesn't like me anymore.
And you get the clammy hand and all of that.
Oh.
But I remember I had an itch or something and I switched hands to then do that. So you knew that I wasn't taking my hand away.
I wasn't being rejected.
No, that's right. And we held hands throughout the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then we probably held hands as we walked along.
Yeah.
And then we went to the beach.
Yeah.
And we looked at the moon and stuff, and we all hung out and chatted for a while. We got to know each other.
That was nice.
It was very nice.
Mm-hmm. It was a good date.
It was a good date. And then I remember our second date was probably not too long after, a couple days after, because probably it was spring break.
Yeah.
And we went to the Good Earth Cafe.
Yeah.
And we had a peanut butter blondie.
Yeah, had some dessert.
And we got to know each other more.
That was nice.
And then from there, the rest is history, as we say.
Yeah. And look, now we're here recording podcast.
Yeah, now we're doing a podcast.
Like fast forward really fast.
Really fast. Okay. And we've already been talking for almost a half an hour. Can you believe that? And that's just like the first date. So we never broke up. We never had any drama.
No.
You were a consistent spark of light in my life, which was a very kind of, I was a very moody, angsty teenager, dealing with a lot of family issues and a lot of, not fun stuff there. So you were a constant light to me. And I really very much appreciate that. And the other thing is you're also, now I had dated a couple other gals. I know.
What?
I'm sorry. Yes, we're just finding out
Wait
on the
a minute.
podcast. Wait a second. And they were all Christians too. And my best friends were Christians. Dave and Mike and, Brian, all my friends, they were all Christians. And I was not. And so then when I started going to church with you and your family, and that was very nice.
Yeah.
And so you were just raised in the church.
Yeah. I don't remember not going to church. It's kind of funny because my mom's first language was Spanish. So she always went to the Mexican Baptist church.
Yeah.
And she grew up in Santa Barbara as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little weird to go there because we didn't speak Spanish at home because my dad didn't speak Spanish.
But you're Mexican.
Yeah.
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 And she didn't want you to speak Spanish because she didn't want.
She didn't want us to go to school and learn English.
She didn't want you to have to learn English in school.
Yes, she didn't want us to go to school only knowing Spanish and having to learn English because that's what happened to her because she only knew Spanish and kids teased her. But she didn't totally think it through because my dad didn't speak Spanish. So clearly we would have been bilingual if we just spoke both in the house.
Which would have been really easy for you.
Yeah.
So you ended up having to take Spanish in school and you took 5 years and you mastered it very well and you could speak fluently.
Yeah. I mean, the only advantage I had by taking it to school is that I learned how to read and write it. Whereas my mom didn't know how to read and write Spanish. She only knew how to speak it.
Wow.
So it really
was her first language.
helped, and it was her first language.
And that leads us to her mom, your abuelita.
Yes.
Now, what did you?
I called her grandma.
Grandma.
Yeah.
Okay. But our daughter Lydia called your mom abuelita.
Yes. My mom did not want to be grandma, so you had to think of another name.
Now, I say it as a gringo. I say abuelita. How would you say it?
Abuelita.
Yeah. See, you just have that extra little finesse there.
Well, it's because I heard it. I just didn't master it.
Yeah. So, well, you did in school, though.
In school, but I didn't at home.
No, but you learned all of it. You have the proper accent. And even our daughter now has, because you taught Lydia Spanish.
I taught her, yeah.
And she took, 5 or 6 years of Spanish as well.
Yeah.
And then she taught my sister how to speak Spanish, which is really wild. And I know no Spanish still.
But when we say things, you know what we're talking about.
For the most part, I can get it. Yeah. So you were raised, obviously, by your mom and dad. Now, see, I was not. I was raised by my mother.
Yes.
And I had a stepfather who was not a great guy. And I had a man that I thought was my real father, who I was estranged from for most of I saw him once a year or so. But it turns out, I found out at 42 that he was not my actual father,
right,
and not my biological father, which was a huge thing. And that's a whole other story for a whole other podcast. But I was never raised with a father figure, really.
Yes.
And the only one that I had was a stepfather who was very abusive to my mother. He was a bit abusive to me at times, and just not a great guy.
Right.
So you, however, flip side, you grew up in this house with a wonderful father, a wonderful mother,
Yeah.
2 sisters, and a grandma.
Yeah.
And your grandma was hysterical.
She was really funny. She knew English because she worked. She had to work in order to put food on the table because she was a single mother.
Yep.
But she was better at Spanish.
Of
Her
course, yeah.
English was fine, but she would get nervous sometimes around people if she only had to speak English.
Okay. Yeah. But so we do something on this podcast, and you and I are both sitting here with our
Yes.
mugs of water, and we have a drink of water, and we say, that's good water.
That's good water. Yeah. My grandma, we would do things in the summer. She would go visit her sister during the summer. So we would do other things in the summer, like go to Disneyland and Magic Mountain and the Universal Studios.
Fun.
And one of the years that Jaws was obviously big, and they had that on the backlot tour.
Yep.
We got a plastic cup. I guess we got, I don't know, a soda in it or something. And we brought it home. It was our souvenir. So we gave it to my grandma.
Yeah.
And she drank her water out of that plastic Jaws cup. She had no idea what Jaws was. She didn't even, I don't think, look at the cup. But she was so happy because it was a big cup and she could put a ton of water in it. So she put her water in it.
Yeah.
And she'd stand there at the sink and she'd sip her water. And every time she'd take a sip, she'd say, that's good water, in English. And she used that cup so
She'd
much.
say it in English.
She'd
That's the
say it
funny
in
thing,
English.
yeah.
But she used it so much that it ended up being a white cup because the whole Jaws thing just came off of
Decals
it.
came
Yeah.
off, yeah. That is so funny.
She loved that cup. It was very funny.
And then this is a melancholy note, but your grandma, who was always delightful to me, she didn't always love everybody, right?
She, at the end of her life, she was having trouble with dementia and such. And she would there were certain people who would come over or be at church and she just didn't like
It would
them. There was
rub her the
no
wrong way, yeah.
reason.
But
And
that
she-
was more like that was
yeah,
the
it was the
dementia.
dementia.
But she always liked me. She was always very kind to
Yep.
me. And sadly, she passed on the day we were married.
Yeah.
And so that was a very tough day for your mom because it's a beautiful, wonderful day in that her youngest daughter is now the last one to be married and getting married. And it was a beautiful ceremony. We had a lovely wedding. And then she got home to the news.
Yeah, thankfully she found out after the wedding. It was, she probably found out even after midnight, the wee hours of the morning,
Yeah.
she got the call letting her know that her mother had passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
but
she
it's-
never told me that it was actually on our wedding day. She said, she passed really early this morning, the next day when we saw her. She never told me, but my sister told me after my mom had passed that the death certificate did say our wedding day.
Yeah. June 29th,
Yeah.
1991.
Yep.
So now let's talk about your sisters for a second too. And is this okay? We're talking about family and stuff. I mean, I know we're going to be on this podcast worldwide and you're telling all this personal information, but you have 2 sisters, but they're both half siblings.
They are half siblings. Both my parents were married before they married each other and had me. They each had a daughter.
And you're kind of a miracle because your mom, they told her that it would be near impossible for her to get pregnant.
They said it would be impossible. Yeah, she even had surgery that removed part of her reproductive system. And so they said there's no way you're going to get pregnant again.
And the Lord smiled and he blessed this world with you.
Yeah.
And you are so funny. You are such a combination of both of your parents. Your dad was English, Irish, Scottish, what have you. Very much like myself. And his name was James.
Yes.
So you married a guy like your dad.
That's right.
Which is very sweet. Your dad was one of the most special people and a wonderful human being. And he was so kind to me as well. Your mother was as well. Both of you, we should say that both of your parents have passed.
They have.
And that is, that's hard because they both passed relatively young.
Yeah. My dad was 60 when he passed.
Yeah.
And my mom was 77.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
On one hand, she lasted a long time without him.
Yeah.
Which was hard because they were very much in love.
Yeah.
And they were such a funny couple.
They were funny.
Because your mom was this tiny little gal and your dad wasn't tall, but
No.
compared to her, he was very tall.
Yeah.
He was probably
when
what, 5'7", 5'8"?
No, he was probably a little bit taller than
Oh,
that.
5'9".
Yeah.
That's right. 5'9". So he's pretty tall. For me, I mean, I'm
Right.
5'4".
I'm exactly between the two of them.
And he was, blonde and, kind of reddish. Yeah,
Mhm.
strawberry blonde and green eyes
Green, yeah.
and always had a beard.
Hmm.
But his hair went white prematurely pretty
Yeah.
quickly, right?
It did.
So the whole time I knew him, he always had a white beard and white hair.
Mhm.
And he was just a great guy, very introverted.
Yes, he was.
Would you say your mom was introverted?
I'd say
Yeah.
she was introverted. She was just noisier
Yeah.
in a way.
Out of the two of them,
Out of the two
one
of
of them's
them,
going to
yeah.
rise up and be a little more of an extrovert.
Yeah.
And they raised you going to church.
Mhm.
You went to a Baptist church.
Yeah. So like I was saying before, we started at the Mexican Baptist church. But then my dad finally told my mom, I'm not getting much out of this service because it's all in Spanish. And so we found a church that was much closer to our house that was a Baptist church, and we started going there.
And so you, as we say in Christian circles, gave your life to the Lord when you were 11.
Yeah.
And so you've always kind of walked with Jesus.
Yeah, I've always known him. It was always just part of everyday conversation, saying grace at the table, going to church, praying for people. And when I wanted to get baptized, being 11 years old, that was a surprise to my parents. Like, you don't make that big decision when you're so young.
Because if we can just interject for a moment, Baptists and a lot of time, most non-denominational things, you can baptize later in life.
Yes.
It's Catholic, I know Lutheran, but is Presbyterian also
I
when
think
you're a baby?
sometimes they baptize
Can't
babies.
remember. Because Lydia was baptized in the Presbyterian church we went to. And she was considered old, I think, right?
Right.
Was that, yeah. So and I say all of that only in that, so you're 11 years old and you're talking
Yeah.
about getting baptized. Some people
Right.
might go, well, I grew up, you're baptized as a baby. So
Yeah, they did at that church. They did not baptize infants. They did baby dedication
Yeah.
at the church. And then you make the decision to get baptized, and it's a full water immersion baptism.
So
And
did you
someone's-
have a dedication then at the Spanish church, you think?
Probably.
Yeah.
Of course, I wouldn't remember.
Yeah. Okay. So your church was a lovely little, classic Americana, just this tiny little church in this
Yep.
little neighborhood.
You knew everybody.
In Goleta, California, which is the suburbs of Santa Barbara, California.
Yep.
There was maybe 60 people in your church.
Yeah, it was a very small church.
And then there was the little red house, which was down across the parking lot.
Yep.
And that's where they did Sunday school and stuff.
Yeah, the church offices were there, and they had a kitchen. So anything we did with youth group, we could cook there. We could, it was
And
nice.
you grew up going to youth group then regularly.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how when we started dating, I started going to your youth group stuff.
Yep.
And that's also when I started kind of really, seeking and searching and such. I always say that I went to your little church there and I felt like Jesus was there.
Yeah.
I felt like he was there and I felt like he was calling to me. And then, of course, it's the rest of my life that is this kind of unfolding. And it was then after we got married, much to your parents' chagrin, I should say, we got married. Chagrin meaning, I don't know. They weren't so certain that it was the right time.
Now, they gave their blessing, though, because you did ask permission to propose to me.
Yes, I went and bought a ring. My friends, the Wilcoxes, Chuck and Sarah, went with me. And Chuck was my best man at the wedding. I got the ring and then I went to your mom's office and I showed it to her and I told her my plan and that I wanted to ask your father's permission.
Yeah.
And so, and hers, obviously, both of their permission. But that I wanted to do it right. I wanted to have lunch with your dad. So I went and had lunch with your dad and he showed me all of his office. So he worked in not aerospace, but
Well, he was an engineer.
Yeah.
He worked for a company that did a lot of work for Boeing.
Yeah.
And so they did a lot of aircraft stuff. And he did a lot of plans and helped create a lot of things for aircraft.
In fact, we fly a lot, you and I. And every time we fly, so he loved looking at planes And he always loved all the stuff about the airplanes. And
I'd
everything.
ask him questions about planes all the time. We'd go to the airport and just watch them. We did that together. So I like being at the airport, actually. I think it's fun.
Well, and the Santa Barbara airport where we grew up, Santa Barbara was a very small town. It still is, but it was even smaller then.
Yeah.
And the airport was tiny.
Very.
And it was great. You could just sit. And it was also, of course, pre 9/11. So anybody could just go into the airport, out, whatever. There was a restaurant in there. You could go and sit in the restaurant, watch the planes land. It was a lot of fun. Your dad loved all that. He loved airplanes. But when we go and we look out the windows at the planes and we see them loading the luggage, you always kind of smile.
Yeah. He was instrumental in helping build those luggage ramps,
Conveyor belts
that take the luggage up and bring the luggage off the plane.
That was very cool.
Yeah.
And there was write-ups in newspapers and such about
newsletters and such. Yeah.
Him working on that.
He was really proud of that.
That's really cool. So I went to his office, got to see where he worked, got to see all these things, got to meet people and all that. And then he and I went to lunch and we had lunch together, man to man. And we talked about us getting married. So you and I had decided, did we pick a date, like the month and everything, but then move it up when we...
Yeah, I think that everybody thought, oh, they'll just be engaged for a long time.
Yeah.
And
because you were still,
I was 18.
You
when
had
we got
graduated
engaged.
high school.
Yes, I was in college.
Yep.
But yeah, they thought, oh, this is like in the future, far from now.
And I'm working at the radio station. Thought I had a pretty good job until I got fired. But now, as you would know, in media, in anything like that in entertainment, it's very common to get fired. It's very common in radio, especially back in the 80s, for a new program director to come in and clean house, which is essentially what happened. They fired everybody. They fired all the on-air talent, and I was the first one fired. And there was a shock. It was a bummer. It was a big bummer to me.
Yeah.
I was 20 and had to go on unemployment, had to try to figure things out. Here we were engaged at this point.
Yeah, we had plans.
We had plans, man. And so then I went and applied to radio stations all over the country. And I got a job offer because I was the unique thing about me was that I could do voices and I could do production. And I was the production director at the radio station. I did all the commercials and stuff and I would do all the voices in it. And I've talked about that a lot on the show. Yeah. But so I had a pretty good demo tape of my work. Yeah. And those was all on cassettes because this was the 80s.
Right.
And I put that demo out and I got a call from a radio station in North Carolina. And I worked for an oldies station, WTRG Oldies 100.7 in North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. So I drove across country. We were engaged. You were in college. I'm working now, trying to get this job. We assumed you'd probably follow me out there when we get married. I worked that job for like 7 months. And I go, this is not what I want to do. I want to be a voice actor in Hollywood. I want to do cartoons. I want to do all of that. And we would go on walks and we would talk about these things and of course we missed each other. Yeah. So then I decide to come back home.
Yes.
I have no job, but I decide I've got to pursue. Well, here's what had happened. I don't know if I've talked about this before. I created a pitch for a Back to the Future cartoon. And it was going to be great. Doc and Marty would go on adventures weekly on a Saturday morning cartoon, and they would go through history lessons and teach people about history, and they would do all of that. And I pitched this to Robert Zemeckis, the creator of Back to the Future, the director and co-creator of Back to the Future, Bob Gale. I did not know Bob Gale. I didn't know Robert Zemeckis, but I had the ability to get this to his hands because my mom worked at a school where his kids went, and he spoke, and she gave him the pitch that day. And it was a cassette tape with me doing the voice of both Doc and Marty. And I must say, I was pretty darn good at both Doc and Marty, even at that point at 21 years of age. I have it somewhere. If I can find it, I'll put it in this episode. If I can't, I won't. But anyways, I used to do promos because Back to the Future was huge at this time. And so I would do promos for the radio stations as that Doc Brown was the engineer at the station. And Marty was like, his assistant and, well, wait a second, Doc. And so I did this whole Back to the Future cartoon pitch. They sent me a letter back saying, thank you so much. We have no plans on doing anything like that, but thank you so much. A few months later,
oh dear,
they announced in the trades, which is the big variety and all of those, that Robert Zemeckis is going to do a Back to the Future cartoon, and it will feature Christopher Lloyd And not Michael J. Fox, but actually, in fact, David Kaufman, who is a friend of mine now, a fellow voice actor. He did Danny Phantom and such. And David had done a lot of Michael's voice doubling as well. And he played Marty in this cartoon. It would be a Saturday morning cartoon, and they would go back in time and they would do all these history things. Whether or not my thing was just a massive coincidence, or they went, hey, that's a pretty good idea. We can, and they owned, I mean, I don't own the rights to Back to the Future, so they did it. So that cartoon was one of the things that made me go, you know what? I've got to go. I've got to try to make my mark in Hollywood. So that was one of the things that got me to come back home, to quit my job at the radio station in Raleigh, to drive cross country with my dear friend Chris Chalk, who was a singer and a fun guy. And I flew him out, and then he drove back with me, because driving cross country on my own before was very hard. It was very hard. I did not like it. I did it in 4 days, which was rough.
That is very fast.
Yeah. And I would call you from hotels, and there was no cell phones back then. There was none of that. And it cost money to make those phone calls. It was expensive. And I would call you from hotels, and I would be exhausted. I was having like mild hallucinations on the road because I would drive like for 12 hours a day. It was too much. So I didn't want to do that coming home. Yeah. So I had my buddy with me, and we would we would shift, trade off.
So much better.
All that. It was great. So I come back home with no prospects. I have no job, and I'm living on my mom's couch.
Yeah. But we were ready to set our wedding date.
Yeah.
So this was happening.
Yeah. We were getting married.
Yep.
So I needed to do something. So I got a job weekends as a DJ at the local easy listening station. Now, the funny thing about that is I'm James Taylor, and this is before I started going by professionally James Arnold Taylor.
Yep.
So I was James Taylor, and I was playing James Taylor songs, because James Taylor is obviously a singer, songwriter.
That's perfect.
So it was very funny. But I'm doing weekends there, and I started doing commercials for them. And at about this time, I learned that the old radio station, K-Tide, that I was at, had fired the program director that fired everybody, and they were bringing some people back. And so Andrew Reimer, who was the general manager of the radio station, who always liked me, on the day before our wedding, offered me my old job back.
Wonderful.
And I took my old job. Well, I think I was also going to produce the morning show and such, and I was going to be assistant to the production director. I was the production director, but there was a production director, but I think he was moving out eventually. Wow. I was going to come back in and take over that job and all of that, right? So I come back.
Perfect timing.
And I'm back on the air, my old radio station. I'm back doing that stuff. And just in time, I get a job.
Yep.
Now, we moved in with your folks, though, because we did not have enough to live on our own because of the way that things had gone.
Yeah.
Wow, this is wild that we're reliving all this.
Yeah.
This is this all right?
That's fine.
This will be part one. This is part one. Okay. And we'll start wrapping it up here. And then we'll do part 2 of the podcast, which will be where we are now in life.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Anything you want to talk about?
Oh, gosh. No, this is just fun going down memory lane again, because we don't always talk about this. It's, we lived it, so we don't really talk about it
Yeah,
anymore.
we look at our yearbooks. So, for example, we were married in 1991. You were 19 years old.
Yeah.
I was 21 years old. But we went to school together. So we have yearbook pictures of us in school together. We have all that. We went to your prom and your many dances, homecoming.
Many dances together.
Homecoming, winter formal. So we have pictures of us in formal gear in school.
Lots of pictures.
Dances and things. And so when we made the movie Hidden Blessings, I used a lot of our photos and home movies and all of that from us being young, which
is great.
Yeah.
Because we have that whole history, and you didn't have to hire a bunch of actors and
try to
recreate everything. It was just there.
It was there. So it's pretty cool that we got to do that.
Yeah.
It's also pretty cool that was our life. So yeah. So we had a fun time growing up in Santa Barbara, California as teenagers in the 80s. Yeah. And then the 90s, becoming young adults, married. And then it was shortly thereafter we were married that I got a job offer to work for a radio syndicator in Hollywood. Yeah. And literally deep down in Hollywood and Vine. I worked down on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood and Vine at a giant building. It's still there, obviously. It's like a 19-story building. I was on the penthouse, top floor, producing radio comedy for radio stations all over the country. Yeah. Pretty big deal.
Right. Getting you closer to your goal.
Yeah. I was working with a partner, a writing partner, Pete Hansen, and Pete and I wrote and produced more comedy than any other 2 people did for this radio network. In fact, we were 50% of the productions for that radio network. And the other 50% was several other people. Right. groups of people. So we did 15 comedy bits a week
Per week.
which
That's
was
a lot.
insane. I produced, by the end of my career in radio comedy, I produced over 9,000 radio comedy bits, commercials, phone calls, wacky radio things.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have them all.
Yeah.
Crazy enough, on digital, I've recorded them and put them, they're on a hard drive somewhere.
And are some of them still being used by certain
I don't know. Maybe.
on-air talent?
I don't know. I know that I'm not a fan of his, but Howard Stern used my stuff. He might still use my stuff now. I was the voice of the Howard Stern Show for many, many years. And you, in fact, were the voice of many characters on his show as well. And then when he did his TV show, he used our stuff illegally. He wasn't supposed to. He was only supposed to use it contractually. He was only supposed to use it for the radio programs. Yeah. And then he had a TV show on CBS. And the very first voice on the very first episode of the Howard Stern television show in the mid to late 90s, your voice was the first voice.
Yep.
So there you go.
And, I am not an actor, so you only used me out of necessity. If you couldn't get an actor, a female actor in to do work.
I had a home studio. I've had a home studio since the 90s. I've always had home studios where I would record my radio comedy. And there would be times where it might be, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and I did not have somebody to do a female voice. And I wouldn't always do the female voices. I would bring you in and coach you through, and you are not an actor.
Oh, gosh. It was so hard for you. Poor thing. You had to really direct me. And you would probably didn't always get exactly what you wanted.
Not
but
always.
Oh, well.
So that was the first half of our life together. Yep. It was wonderful, but we didn't see each other much because I worked with Pete. So now we were producing all this radio comedy, but we would have to drive down. We lived in Santa Barbara for the first several months, right? Yep. Because we wanted to make sure it was still going to work and the contract was going to hold and all of that. So I think for the first 3 to 4 months, we still lived in Santa Barbara. And I would drive to Hollywood, California every day. And work till about 3 a.m. and then drive home. And it was a 2-hour drive home.
And I worked during the day full time.
So I would get home when you were going to work and vice versa. Yeah. And we did that for a long time. And then we finally moved to Hollywood. And we lived in the suburbs. Sure. And we would go to work still at night. Pete and I would go to work at night. And then eventually I stopped working with Pete. And I started working with several other I had other partners, Lisa Kushel, who was on Seinfeld, and she was on Mad TV. She was on Mad TV, very famously on Mad TV for many years with Phil Lamar and all those folks, Will Sasso and all those folks. And Lisa was my writing partner and producing partner for many years. Jason Huber. Jason was my producing partner for many years. Peter Williamson. I had several different people that I produced comedy with. And then I did stuff on my own for the last several years. And then I would just hire actors to do other voices, additional voices or things with me. Bern Offit, that's a funny name, but Bern's a very talented actor. He would do stuff with me. And so you were working in the medical management industry. You were a liaison between insurance companies and doctors.
Yes.
And you did that for many years when we first got married.
Yeah.
You also worked at a cable company.
Yeah. My first job after we got married was at the cable company in Santa Barbara. And that was just a customer service position. But it was better because it was in person. It was at the cable store. So people are less mean when they see you face to face. When you're on the phone, that's terrible to be the complaint department because people are pretty mean.
But you did that for a while too. At another cable company when we moved to LA.
Yeah.
And then you got this job very quickly in medical management.
Yeah.
And you thrived.
Yeah, I really liked it. I was always fascinated by medical stuff. So it was interesting to work with nurses and doctors and get them, trying to help them be organized and get their stuff done. Because the doctors want to just do medicine. They don't want to do the paperwork. Right. So they hired us to do that sort of thing.
How many years did you do that?
4 years.
4 years. I was going to say 2 or 3. You did it for 4 years. Yeah. And then something crucial happened.
Yeah.
We'll end on this. We'll talk for just a little bit longer here. And then we'll end this note and then we'll start part 2. Okay. So what happened?
Well, you were an independent contractor for other places besides the radio network, and you started doing work for Moviefone,
voiceover
work.
Their I was spots
and what have you. And you said, I'd really like it if you worked for me,
Because
worked for our company.
I had a home studio. I had a pretty successful, I was producing comedy for the radio networks, and I had a good contract with them. And then I was producing stuff for MoviePhone, and I was producing stuff for other, other independent people that would ask for my voice on things. And so I was the second voice of MoviePhone. Russ Leatherman, of course, was the first. He was Mr. MoviePhone.
Hello and welcome to MoviePhone.
And then I was the friendly voice that said,
The Royal Theater is located on Royal Street.
all of that stuff. And then I would do the trailers.
Right.
In a world, one man. I did all of that for them. So it was a lot. It was a handful.
And you managed it just fine. You created everything with the business, but you thought if I had someone to help me, someone who was organized and able to do all this stuff with me.
And understood how I
yes,
work.
And you could keep to being the talent.
Yeah.
And I could handle the paperwork and all that stuff.
And talking to them and FedExing packages. Because back then, you couldn't do anything online.
No.
It was dial-up was new. And we had, you've got mail, AOL.
Yep.
So I literally would record things in my studio on what they called DAT, which was digital audio tape. And I still have right behind you my old DAT machine there. And I would record it on that, master everything. I had a multi-track mixer at home and in the studio, and then I would mix everything, and then I would have to send it to MoviePhone.
We'd overnight it, so we'd go to FedEx pretty much every day and drop
overnight
it off.
tapes to them, and then they would get them and all of that. Now, the funny thing is I probably could have driven it to them, but I usually didn't.
Yeah.
But sometimes I did because they were in LA. But it was busy. It was a hectic time.
Yeah.
And it was hard for one person to do all of that. So you quit your job. I said, we're going to take a chance. And we prayed long and hard on this.
It was a huge leap of faith.
And we decided to have you come work for me and renegotiate my contract with the radio network.
Yeah.
And we were successful. We renegotiated because I was no longer working with any partners, and I was still producing 15 comedy bits a week on my own.
Right.
Which was insane. And again, I had friends that were writing some bits and stuff for me here and there, but I was still producing. I was responsible for all of it, voicing, producing, putting it all together, finishing that, doing MoviePhone on the side, doing other voice work on the side, trying to start my voiceover career, getting an agent and all of that. And I really wanted to focus on voice acting.
Right.
And that's why I needed you to come help me.
Yeah. You need to focus more time on those things versus just doing everything to pay the bills.
Yes. So we take the leap of faith. You quit your job.
Yeah.
They all said, you're making a huge mistake.
Yeah.
This is terrible. All of that. We said, we'll see. And we prayed and we gave it to God. We said, Jesus, thy will be done. And I say that because it's a testament to faith. It's a leap of faith. And I say that also because a lot of people listening could be going, I really want to do this, but I do this instead.
Right.
Sometimes you take those leaps of faith. Now you make sure that you have enough to pay your bills, to feed your family, to do all that. You never do it irresponsibly. We were still making enough, but we were about to cut our income in half essentially.
Yeah.
You were making a decent living.
Yeah.
I was making a decent living, but we knew that what I did for the radio network was more than they were paying me for.
Yes.
And my friend Craig Kitchen was one of the presidents of the radio network. And he inferred to me, and if you present us with a good contract, we will consider it.
Yeah, they were ready to renegotiate.
So I negotiated a contract that essentially doubled what I was making. And in fact, didn't it make, when we added it up, wasn't it $300 more than you were making?
Yeah,
us?
it covered my salary and then a little bit more.
Yeah. So that was God's promise that we did the right thing.
Yes.
And so from that point, you started working for me exclusively.
Yes.
And that was how many years ago? 25, 26, 20.
Oh, yeah. It was 1997.
1997.
Yeah.
So it was nearly 30 years ago.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's closer to 30 than, whatever. But it's like 25 plus years ago that you decided to work for me. And we've done pretty well.
Yeah.
So on that note, thank you for listening to this first half of the James Arnold Taylor podcast. We are going to come back with my lovely wife, friend, best friend, business partner, and compadre, Allison Taylor. And we will do part 2 of the James Arnold Taylor podcast, talking to myself, not really talking to my wife. That's what it's called this time. Hey, Mr. Announcer Guy, do that legal mumbo jumbo.
Talking to Myself, the James Arnold Taylor podcast is a production of Yumigo Inc., recorded at JAT Studios. Engineered, written, recorded, and produced by, you guessed it, James Arnold Taylor. All voices are parody and should be construed as entertainment only. All music and sound effects used with permissions and licenses through Backtracks, Digital Juice, Production Tracks, and Partners in Rhyme. James Arnold Taylor's Talking to Myself, the podcast. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved.
Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. And I don't normally do this. Normally, I do the interviews like that, and then I kind of record the ins and outs. But so do you want to say, do you know what I say at the end of every episode of the podcast? I go, thanks so much, everybody, and goodbye. You didn't know. So you say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay, very good. That's it. Goodbye.